The huge space station looked like a metal city floating in the darkness. Wu Jin pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship and watched as they got closer. The station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It had towers that stretched for miles and spinning rings that created fake gravity for the aliens who lived there. "First time seeing the council station?" asked Hyejin, the young woman sitting next to him. She wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service, but Wu Jin could see the worry in her eyes. "Yes," Wu Jin said quietly. "It's bigger than I thought it would be." Behind them, Commander Taeho checked his weapons one more time. He was not supposed to need them, but Earth's leaders had learned not to trust aliens completely. Too many human colonies had been attacked by peaceful alien traders in the past few years. The transport ship docked with a soft bump. Wu Jin straightened his black suit and walked toward the exit. As the doors opened, he saw dozens of alien creatures waiting for them. Some looked like giant insects with too many arms. Others were made of what looked like living rock. A few floated in the air inside clear bubbles filled with strange gas. All of them stared at the three humans as they walked through the corridor. "They're scared," Taeho whispered to Wu Jin. "Good," Wu Jin replied. "They should be." The main council chamber was enormous. It had seats for over 1,000 different alien species, arranged in circles around a central platform. Most of the seats were filled. Wu Jin had never seen so many different types of life in one place. Some aliens were tiny, no bigger than his hand. Others were so large they needed special platforms just to fit in the room. At the center of it all stood Speaker Veltaran. The alien looked like a walking crystal, tall and thin, with light glowing inside its transparent body. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking glass. "The council calls this emergency session to order," Veltaran announced. "We are here to discuss the human problem." Wu Jin felt hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him. He kept his face calm and empty, just like Earth's leaders had taught him. Never show fear. Never show weakness. "The charges against humanity are serious," Veltaran continued. "They expand their territory without asking permission. They build weapons faster than any young species should. They refuse to follow our rules, and now they help primitive aliens become spacefaring without our approval." One by one, aliens stood up to speak against humanity. A creature that looked like a blue jellyfish complained that humans had stolen their technology. A metal robot said humans had broken their mining deals. An alien made of pure energy claimed that humans were too violent and dangerous. "Humans are chaos," said an ancient alien whose voice sounded like wind through caves. "They do not understand order. They will destroy the peace we have built over thousands of years." Wu Jin listened to every word. He did not argue. He did not defend humanity. He just waited. After 2 hours of complaints, Speaker Veltaran finally turned to him. "Ambassador Wu Jin of Earth, you may now defend your species against these charges." Wu Jin stood up slowly. The chamber became completely quiet. Even the floating aliens stopped moving. "I did not come here to defend anything," Wu Jin said. His voice was calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. "I did not come here to make excuses or ask for forgiveness." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many aliens as he could. "I came here to tell you something important. Your oversight of human affairs ends today. We will no longer ask for your permission to explore space. We will no longer follow your trade rules. We will no longer pretend that you have any authority over us." The chamber exploded with angry alien voices. Some aliens jumped up from their seats. Others made threatening gestures with their claws or tentacles. Speaker Veltaran's crystal body flashed with bright light. "You cannot simply refuse the Council's authority," Veltaran shouted. "We have maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. Every species must follow our rules. Not humans," Wu Jin said simply. He turned and walked toward the exit. Hyejin and Taeho followed him without saying a word. As they reached the doors, alien security guards moved to block their path. Taeho stepped forward, but Wu Jin held up his hand to stop him. "Let them try to stop us," Wu Jin said loud enough for the whole chamber to hear. "Let them show everyone what their peaceful council really is." The security guards looked at each other uncertainly. They had expected the humans to beg or argue, not simply walk away. Speaker Veltaran made a sharp sound that might have been anger or fear. "Let them go," the crystal alien said. "But this is not over, humans. The council will not forget this insult." "Good," Wu Jin said without turning around. "Remember it well." As they walked through the corridor toward their ship, Hyejin's hands shook slightly. Sir, was that wise? We just made enemies of the entire galaxy. No, Wu Jin replied. We just stopped pretending we weren't already enemies. When they reached their transport ship, He Jin pulled out a small device from her pocket. It looked like an ordinary communication tablet, but Wu Jin knew it was much more than that. Ready, sir? She asked. Do it, Wu Jin said. He Jin pressed a button on the device. For exactly 3 seconds, every light in the council station went out. Every computer screen went black. Every communication system went silent. The massive station, home to thousands of alien species, was completely dead. Then everything came back on. The message was clear. Humans had been watching. Humans had been listening. And if they wanted to, humans could have turned off the lights forever. As their ship pulled away from the station, Wu Jin looked back at the alien city one last time. He knew that in a few hours every species in the galaxy would know what had happened here today. They would know that a young species from a small blue planet had looked at the most powerful organization in the galaxy and said no. Some would be angry. Some would be scared. But all of them would finally understand the truth about humans. They did not ask for permission to be free. 3 days after the humans left the council station, the galaxy's most powerful military leaders met on Axiom Prime. The planet was a fortress world, covered in weapons and protected by energy shields that could stop entire fleets. If there was any safe place in the galaxy, this was it. Fleet Admiral Kethmore of the Hegemony arrived first. His species looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs, and his scales were covered in scars from 100 battles. He had never lost a war in his 300 years of life. General Tixnall came next. She was from the Korath war machine, a species that had turned their entire civilization into one big army. Her metal armor was built into her body, and her eyes glowed red in the darkness. The last to arrive was Supreme Commander Yilseth of the Ethereal Armadas. His people were made of pure energy, and he appeared as a floating ball of golden light. The Ethereals were the oldest military force in the galaxy, with weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The human problem must be solved quickly, Kethmore said, his voice like grinding stone. They embarrassed the council in front of everyone. If we let them get away with this, other species will think they can rebel too. Agreed, Tixnall replied. My scouts report that human ships have been seen in 17 different systems this week. They're moving fast and avoiding our patrols. They're planning something. Yilseth's golden form pulsed with light. The Ethereals have been watching humans for 50 years. They are clever, but they are still young. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. One strong attack will end this rebellion before it starts. The 3 commanders began planning their attack. They would bring 5,000 ships from their combined fleets. They would hit Earth and the 12 human colony worlds at the same time. The humans would surrender or be destroyed. Meanwhile, on Earth, President So Young stood in front of the Global Parliament building. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice was strong as she spoke to the representatives of every nation on Earth. The aliens think they can scare us into obedience, she said. They are wrong. For the past 50 years, while they thought we were busy learning to build spaceships, we were actually learning to defend ourselves. Behind her, a huge screen showed pictures from space. Human colonies on distant worlds were busy building defenses. Factories that the aliens thought made farming equipment were actually making weapons. Mining stations were revealed to be military bases in disguise. Dr. Kyung-ho will now explain what we have learned about our enemies, President So Young said. The elderly scientist stepped forward. He had spent his whole life studying alien species, and his face was tired but determined. For decades we have been watching the council species, Dr. Kyung-ho said. We know their weaknesses. We know their fears. And most importantly, we know their plans. The screen showed intercepted alien communications. The council had been planning to control humanity for years. They wanted to use human colonies as sources of cheap labor. They planned to take Earth's resources and give humans just enough technology to be useful servants. They never intended to treat us as equals, Dr. Kyung-ho continued. Every gift of technology came with hidden controls. Every trade deal was designed to make us dependent on them. They have done this to dozens of other species throughout the galaxy. In space, Captain Dongwu received his new orders aboard the TFS Indomitable. His ship was one of humanity's newest designs, built in secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields. To alien sensors, it looked like a simple cargo ship. In reality, it was the most advanced warship humans had ever built. Navigation Officer Yunmi, set course for the Vega system, Captain Dongwu ordered. We need to see what the aliens are building there. Yes, sir, Yunmi replied. She was young, but she had trained for this mission her entire life. Like everyone else on the ship, she knew that humanity's survival might depend on what they discovered. Weapons Specialist Jin Ho checked his equipment one more time. The weapons on human ships were different from anything the aliens used. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, human weapons used gravity itself as a weapon. Jin Ho still remembered the first time he had seen a test firing. The target asteroid had simply been crushed into nothing. As the Indomitable moved through space, it remained invisible to alien sensors. Human stealth technology was 50 years ahead of anything the Council species had. They could watch alien fleets without being detected. Captain, Yunmi said quietly, I'm reading massive energy signatures near Vega. It looks like they're assembling a fleet. How many ships? Captain Dongwu asked. At least 3,000, sir. Maybe more. They're using the gas giant's moons to hide the smaller vessels. Captain Dongwu nodded grimly. It was exactly what Earth's intelligence services had predicted. The aliens were gathering their forces for a massive attack. Back on Earth, the Council's ultimatum arrived exactly 72 hours after Ambassador Wu Jin had left their station. The message was transmitted on all frequencies, making sure every human in the galaxy would hear it. People of Earth, the message began in Speaker Veltaran's crystal voice. Your species has committed crimes against galactic law. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally to Council authority. Your leaders must submit to judgment. Your military forces must be disbanded. Your colonies must accept Council governors. The message continued with a long list of demands. Humans would be forbidden from developing new technology without permission. Earth's resources would be managed by alien corporations. Human children would be educated by Council teachers who would make sure they learned to obey alien authority. If you refuse these reasonable terms, the message concluded, the Council will have no choice but to take corrective action. This is your final warning. President So-young's response was broadcast from Earth just 6 hours later. She stood in the same chamber where Wu Jin had been given his orders, surrounded by the leaders of every human nation and colony. To the Galactic Council, she began, looking directly into the camera. We have heard your ultimatum. We have considered your demands, and we have reached our decision. She paused, letting her words reach every corner of human space. Humanity bows to no council. We yield to no threat. We fear no enemy. For 50 years you have underestimated us. You thought we were weak because we asked for peace. You thought we were stupid because we traded with you honestly. You thought we were helpless because we followed your rules. President So-young's voice grew stronger with each word. You were wrong about everything. We have tried diplomacy. We have tried cooperation. We have tried living by your rules. But you have chosen to threaten us with slavery or death. Very well. You have chosen war. As her words spread across the galaxy, a secret signal went out to every human ship, station, and colony. It was a simple code that had been programmed into every piece of human technology for the past 20 years. Protocol Omega was now active. In hidden bunkers on Earth, massive machines began to hum with power. In space, weapons platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites came online. On distant colony worlds, defense systems that had been hidden underground rose to the surface. The aliens thought they were about to crush a weak, young species. Instead, they had just awakened something that had been waiting patiently for this moment. Humanity was ready for war. The Council Armada moved through space like a metal storm. 5,000 ships from dozens of different alien species flew toward human territory. Admiral Kethmore commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that was 3 miles long and armed with enough weapons to destroy a moon. All ships, maintain formation, Kethmore ordered through the communication system. The humans are young and weak. This will be over quickly. General Thixnall's voice crackled through the speakers from her command ship. My scouts report no human military activity in the border systems. They're probably hiding behind their planet like scared children. Supreme Commander Yilseth's energy form pulsed with confidence. The ethereal fleet is ready to provide support if needed. But I doubt these primitive humans will require our full attention. The alien commanders were so sure of their victory that they did not notice the small objects floating in space around them. The objects looked like pieces of space junk or broken asteroids. The alien sensors classified them as harmless debris and ignored them completely. This was their first mistake. As the Council fleet entered the outer edge of human space, the debris suddenly came alive. What the aliens had thought were worthless rocks were actually automated defense platforms. Hundreds of them powered up at the same time, revealing weapon systems that no alien had ever seen before. "What are those?" General Thixanel demanded as her ship's alarms began screaming. The first volley of human weapons hit the Council fleet like hammers made of invisible force. Ships that had been flying in perfect formation suddenly found themselves spinning out of control. Their hulls were not damaged, but something was wrong with their engines and navigation systems. Admiral Kethmore stared at his displays in confusion. "Report, what kind of weapons are they using?" "I don't know, sir," his weapons officer replied. "Our sensors show no energy beams, no missiles, no plasma bolts. But 17 of our ships have lost power to their main drives." The second surprise came when the human fleet appeared. One moment, the space around the Council armada was empty. The next moment, 40 human warships materialized as if they had stepped out of thin air. "Impossible!" Supreme Commander Yilseth's golden form flared with shock. "No species can travel through space without using the hyperspace gates." "How did they get here so fast?" Admiral Jihoon stood on the bridge of the TFS Retribution, watching the alien fleet through his ship's main screen. He was a calm man who had spent his life preparing for this moment. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. "All ships begin Phase 2, Admiral Jihoon ordered. "Show them what human technology can really do." The human ships began to move in ways that made the watching aliens question everything they knew about space travel. Instead of using rockets or ion drives like every other species in the galaxy, human ships seemed to slide through space as if gravity itself was pushing them forward. Captain Somin commanded the TFS Lightning, one of the smaller human ships. Her vessel was only a quarter the size of the alien dreadnoughts, but it moved like a dancer while the alien ships moved like elephants. Weapons Officer Junho, "Target the lead Korath cruiser," Captain Somin ordered. "Target locked, Captain," Junho replied. "Gravitic disruptor ready." Fire. The human weapon was invisible to the alien sensors, but its effect was immediate and terrifying. The Korath cruiser, a ship designed to withstand any known weapon, simply stopped moving. Its engines were still running, its power systems were still working, but the ship itself was trapped in a bubble of twisted spacetime. On the research station New Horizon, Dr. Sungmin watched the battle through long-range sensors. He was the man who had developed humanity's gravitic technology, and he felt both pride and sadness as he watched it being used in war. "The field generators are working perfectly," he reported to Earth Command. "The alien ships are completely helpless against gravitational manipulation." For 30 years, Dr. Sungmin had worked on the secret project. While alien scientists used brute force and massive amounts of energy to power their technology, humans had learned to use the fundamental forces of the universe itself. They could make gravity stronger or weaker in any area of space they chose. The aliens had never even imagined such technology was possible. Lieutenant Colonel Hyojin received her orders as the first Council landing ships tried to reach the human colony of New Geneva. She commanded the 1st Human Defense Regiment, and her soldiers were equipped with armor that made them look like metal giants. "Remember your training," she told her troops through the radio. "These aliens have been fighting wars for thousands of years, but they've never fought humans." The alien landing craft touched down on New Geneva's surface, and hundreds of Council soldiers poured out. They were confident and experienced, carrying weapons that could burn through steel and wearing armor that had protected them in a dozen wars. They had never faced powered armor before. The human soldiers moved like machines, but faster than any machine the aliens had ever seen. Private Tae-hyun ran across the battlefield at 60 miles per hour, his armor's servos boosting his strength to superhuman levels. When Korath soldiers shot at him with their plasma rifles, the energy beams bounced off his armor like raindrops. Sergeant Yoon-ho carried a weapon that looked like a simple metal rod. When she pointed it at an alien battle tank, the vehicle simply fell apart. The weapon disrupted the molecular bonds that held matter together, turning solid metal into dust. Within an hour, the entire alien landing force had surrendered. They had not been killed or wounded. They had simply been made to understand that fighting humans was impossible. But the greatest shock was yet to come. Engineer Mi Young worked alone in the control room of the research vessel Prometheus. She was a quiet woman who preferred mathematics to conversation, but her calculations were about to change the course of galactic history. Earth Command. "This is Prometheus," she said into her communication device. "The stellar disruptor is ready for testing." "Confirmed, Prometheus," came the reply from Earth. "You are authorized to proceed with demonstration." Mi Young looked at the star on her main screen. It was a small yellow sun in an empty system on the border of Council space. No planets orbited it. No life existed anywhere near it. It was perfect for what she needed to do. She pressed a single button. The effect was not immediate. For 30 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly the star began to dim. Its bright yellow light faded to orange, then to red, then to nothing. The star did not explode like a supernova. It did not collapse into a black hole. It simply stopped shining. The fusion reactions that had burned for billions of years were halted by human technology. "Demonstration complete," Mi Young reported calmly. "Stellar fusion successfully disrupted. The star will remain inactive for approximately 72 hours before natural processes restart the fusion reaction." Across the galaxy, alien astronomers detected the impossible event. A star had simply turned off. Every alien scientist who saw the data checked their instruments, convinced there had been a mistake. There was no mistake. On Axiom Prime, Admiral Kethmore stared at the intelligence reports with growing horror. His fleet had been defeated without losing a single ship. The aliens were alive and unharmed, but their vessels were completely disabled. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "We have the most advanced military technology in the galaxy." General Thixanal's metal face showed no emotion, but her voice was filled with fear. "The humans can turn off stars. If they wanted to, they could extinguish every sun in Council space." Supreme Commander Yilseth's golden form flickered with uncertainty. "We have made a terrible mistake. We thought we were facing children with simple weapons. Instead, we have awakened something that makes us look like the primitive ones." Emergency meetings were called on every Council world. The reports all said the same thing. Humanity possessed technology that was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy had ever seen. They could manipulate gravity, disable any known weapon, and even control the stars themselves. The most terrifying part was not what the humans had done. It was what they had chosen not to do. They could have destroyed the entire Council fleet. They could have killed every alien soldier on New Geneva. They could have turned off every star in Council space. Instead, they had shown mercy. The message was clear to every alien leader in the galaxy. Humans were not the weak, primitive species the Council had believed them to be. They were the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen, and they had been hiding it for 50 years. General Sijin stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by displays showing every star system in the galaxy. She was a woman who had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, and now that it had arrived, she felt only calm determination. "Operation Starfall begins now," she announced to the military commanders watching from screens around the room. "All teams, you know your targets. Strike fast, strike hard, and get out before they can respond." Across human space, dozens of ships received their orders simultaneously. They would hit 17 different Council military installations at the same time, crippling the alien war machine in a single coordinated attack. Captain Bong-Su prepared his crew aboard the TFS Shadow as they approached the heavily defended Kepler station. His ship was completely invisible to alien sensors, using technology that bent light around the hull like water flowing around a stone. Demolitions expert Yujin, "Are the charges ready?" Captain Bong-Su asked. "Ready, sir," Yujin replied. She was a small woman with quick hands and a talent for making things explode in exactly the right way. "These charges will disable their main power grid without harming any of the aliens inside." Intelligence Officer Hyunwoo studied the station's layout on his screen. "Sir, I've identified the locations of 3 High Council members. They're in the secure conference room on level 47. "Good," Captain Bong-Su said. "We'll extract them for questioning. Earth Command wants to know exactly what the Council has been planning." The Shadow docked with the alien station without setting off a single alarm. Captain Bong-Su's team moved through the corridors like ghosts, avoiding alien guards and security cameras. When they reached the conference room, they found the 3 Council leaders huddled around a table, desperately trying to coordinate their defenses. The aliens never knew what hit them. One moment they were arguing about how to stop the human attacks. The next moment they were unconscious and being carried to a human ship by soldiers they could not see. On Earth, Communications Officer Young Hee sat in front of a wall of screens, showing alien communication networks from across the galaxy. She had been intercepting council messages for years, but now she had permission to share what she had learned. Beginning broadcast of intercepted council communications, she announced. Across the galaxy, alien species received shocking news about their own government. The recordings showed council leaders discussing how to use the human crisis as an excuse to seize more power from member worlds. They talked about reducing the independence of smaller species and forcing them to provide more resources to the council's inner circle. Species that had supported the council for thousands of years suddenly learned that their leaders saw them as nothing more than sources of cheap labor and raw materials. On the industrial world of Nexus Prime, the insect-like hive queens gathered in emergency session. They had always been loyal to the council, but the intercepted messages showed that the council planned to replace their elected leaders with appointed governors. "The council has betrayed us," Queen Zixara declared, her wings buzzing with anger. "We withdraw our support immediately." Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. The crystal beings of Shard announced their independence. The peaceful plant people of Garden World declared neutrality. The nomadic cloud riders simply packed up their ships and flew away to explore distant galaxies. On Earth, strategic analyst Jamin presented his findings to President So Young. His report was thick with charts and calculations, but his conclusion was simple. "Ma'am, the Council's military power is breaking apart," he said. "Half of their member species have withdrawn support. The other half are fighting among themselves. We could defeat their remaining forces in a direct confrontation, but the cost would be enormous." President So Young studied the numbers. Millions of lives hung in the balance, both human and alien. "What do you recommend, Jamin?" "Psychological warfare, ma'am," he replied. "Show them what we could do, but don't actually do it. Make them understand that resistance is hopeless without forcing them to fight to the death." The turning point came when Intelligence Officer Minjun discovered the Council's darkest secret. Hidden in the intercepted communications was a plan that made every human leader's blood run cold. They were planning to use biological weapons against our civilian populations, Minjun reported to the Emergency Council session. The plan was called Operation Clean Slate. They intended to release modified viruses that would only affect humans. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had not just been planning to conquer humanity. They had been planning genocide. Admiral Sang-Wan received the authorization he had been hoping he would never need. "Deploy the nanomachine swarms," came the order from Earth Command. "Target their military fleets only. No civilian casualties." The nanomachines were humanity's most fearsome non-lethal weapon. Each one was smaller than a virus, but together, they could dismantle any technology they encountered. They could take apart a spaceship piece by piece, leaving the crew alive but completely helpless. Admiral Sang-Wan watched from his flagship as 3 Council fleets suddenly went dark. Every ship in all 3 fleets stopped moving at exactly the same moment. Their engines shut down. Their weapons went offline. Their life support systems switched to backup power. The alien crews were unharmed, but they were trapped in dead ships floating in empty space. Admiral Kethmore found himself sitting in darkness aboard his once mighty flagship. The ship that had terrorized a dozen worlds was now as helpless as a child's toy. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the only sound was the quiet hum of the backup life support. "Report," he ordered his crew, though he already knew what they would tell him. "All systems are offline, sir," his weapons officer reported. "Main power, engines, shields, weapons, everything is gone. But the hull is intact and we're not taking any damage. Life support. Running on emergency power. We have maybe 6 hours of air left." Admiral Kethmore understood the message. The humans could have killed everyone aboard his ship with the same ease that they had disabled it. Instead, they had chosen to show mercy while demonstrating their absolute power. Human rescue ships appeared a few hours later to collect the stranded alien crews. The aliens were treated well, given food and medical care, and transported to neutral space where they could contact their governments. But every alien who experienced the attack would remember it for the rest of their lives. They had felt completely helpless, knowing that their lives depended entirely on human mercy. General Thixnall's metal armor felt cold against her skin as she sat in the rescue ship that had picked up her crew. For the first time in her long military career, she had been utterly defeated without firing a single shot. "Why didn't they kill us?" she asked the human medical officer who was checking her for injuries. Dr. Yuna looked up from her scanner with tired eyes. "Because that's not who we are," she said simply. "Humans don't kill unless we have no other choice. But we were coming to conquer your worlds. We were going to enslave your people." "We know," Dr. Yuna replied. "That's why we stopped you. But stopping you didn't require killing you." The news of the human mercy spread through alien space faster than any official communication. Species that had feared human brutality instead heard stories of human soldiers sharing their food with captured enemies. Alien crews talked about human rescue ships that arrived within hours to save stranded survivors. Supreme Commander Yilseth's energy form flickered with confusion as he tried to understand what had happened. His people, the Ethereals, had ruled the galaxy through fear for 10,000 years. They destroyed anyone who opposed them completely and without mercy. The humans had done the opposite. They had shown that they could destroy anyone they chose. But then they had chosen not to destroy anyone at all. On dozens of council worlds, alien populations began to ask uncomfortable questions about their governments. If the humans were really the monsters the council claimed they were, why had they shown such restraint? Why had they gone out of their way to avoid civilian casualties? Why had they rescued their enemies instead of leaving them to die? The answers painted a picture that many aliens found more frightening than any human weapon. The council had lied to them. The real monsters were not the humans, who showed mercy to their enemies. The real monsters were the leaders who had planned to commit genocide and then lied about it to their own people. Communication. Networks across the galaxy carried a new kind of message. Instead of council propaganda about human aggression, ordinary aliens began sharing stories about human kindness. Videos of human medical teams treating wounded alien soldiers. Reports of human ships delivering food to alien refugees. The war was not over, but something fundamental had changed. The galaxy was starting to see humans not as conquerors but as protectors. And that was the most dangerous thing of all for the old order. 6 months after the first shots were fired, Ambassador Wu Jin returned to the council station, but this time he was not alone. A fleet of human ships surrounded the station, their presence a quiet reminder of who now controlled this part of space. The council chamber looked very different from the last time Wu Jin had stood in it. Most of the seats were empty. Of the 1,000 species that had once sent representatives, fewer than 200 remained. The rest had either declared independence or joined the growing alliance of worlds that now looked to Earth for leadership. Speaker Veltaran's crystal body was dim and cracked. The proud alien who had once commanded the respect of the galaxy now seemed old and broken. "Ambassador Wu Jin," Veltaran said, his voice barely above a whisper, "You have returned." "I have," Wu Jin replied. He walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where he had been accused of crimes against galactic law. "But not as a defendant. I'm here to accept your surrender." The few remaining council members sat in silence. They had tried to fight the humans with words, then with weapons, then with desperate alliances. Nothing had worked. Every military force they sent was defeated without casualties. Every propaganda campaign was countered by the truth. Every secret plan was exposed before it could be implemented. "What are your terms?" asked Councillor Thekran, a gray-skinned alien whose people had served the council for 5,000 years. Wu Jin pulled out a simple document. "Complete dissolution of the Galactic Council. All member species are free to govern themselves. All trade restrictions are eliminated. All territorial claims are void." "And what of punishment?" Speaker Veltaran asked. "Will you execute the council leaders? Will you occupy our worlds?" "No," Wu Jin said simply. "You're free to go home. You're free to live your lives. You're free to make better choices in the future." The remaining council members looked at each other in disbelief. They had expected human vengeance. They had prepared for occupation and slavery. The idea that they would simply be allowed to leave seemed impossible. On Earth, President So-Young stood before the cameras that would broadcast her message to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Behind her was a map showing the new political situation. Green areas represented worlds that had joined the Terran Alliance. Blue areas were independent worlds that traded freely with humanity. Red areas showed the few remaining Council holdouts. Citizens of the galaxy, President So-Young began, today marks the beginning of a new age. The old system of control and fear is over. In its place, we offer something different. Cooperation based on choice, not force. She gestured to the map behind her. Any species that wishes to join the Terran Alliance will be welcomed as equals. You will keep your own governments, your own cultures, your own ways of life. All we ask is that you treat other species with the same respect you would want for yourselves. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of the broadcast, dozens of species requested to join the Alliance. The crystal beings of Shard were among the first, followed by the nomadic cloud riders who returned from their distant travels specifically to sign the agreement. Dr. Ji-Hai, who had been chosen to head the new Galactic Integration Council, worked 18 hours a day processing applications. Her office on the space station New Geneva was constantly busy with alien diplomats who wanted to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchanges. The Korath Collective has formally requested to join, she reported to President So-Young during their daily communication. General Thicksnull herself delivered the application. She says her people are tired of endless warfare and want to try something new. And the Ethereals? President So-Young asked. Still considering their options, Dr. Ji-Hai replied. Supreme Commander Yilseth has been in discussions with our negotiation team for 3 weeks. I think they're having trouble accepting that they won't be in charge anymore. The transformation of galactic society happened faster than anyone had expected. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries were reopened. Scientific research that had been restricted to Council members was shared freely. Exploration missions pushed into regions of space that had been declared off-limits by the old government. On the former Council world of Centris, alien families walked freely through markets where humans and dozens of other species traded goods from across the galaxy. Children from different worlds played together in parks, while their parents discussed business deals that would have been impossible under the old system. Fleet. Admiral Haywan watched the transformation. From the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the TFS Prometheus, the massive ship was a symbol of human power, but also of human principles. Its crew included humans, Korath warriors, ethereal engineers, and representatives from 30 other species. Navigation Officer Telmara, set course for the Andromeda Relay, Admiral Haywan ordered. The navigation officer was a blue-skinned alien whose people had joined the Alliance just 2 months earlier. Course laid in, Admiral, Telmara replied. Estimated travel time to the exploration zone is 6 days. Admiral Haywan smiled as she looked at her diverse crew. The old council had kept different species separated, claiming it was necessary for peace. But working together, these beings accomplished things that none of them could have achieved alone. In the ship's science laboratory, Dr. Kyung-ho worked alongside alien researchers on projects that had been impossible under the Council's restrictive laws. They were developing new technologies by combining human gravity manipulation with ethereal energy control and Korath manufacturing techniques. The prototype is ready for testing, announced Dr. Vexkaran, a crystalline being whose species had been forbidden from advanced research by the old council. This new propulsion system should allow us to travel between galaxies in a matter of weeks instead of centuries. Dr. Kyung-ho nodded approvingly. Begin the test sequence. If this works, we'll be able to explore regions of space that no one has ever seen before. On distant worlds, former council military officers found new purposes. Admiral Kethmore, who had once commanded the largest battle fleet in the galaxy, now led exploration missions to uncharted star systems. His ships were still armed, but their primary mission was to make contact with new species and offer them the choice to join the galactic community. General Thicksnull had perhaps undergone the greatest transformation of all. The warrior who had spent her life conquering worlds now taught defensive tactics at the new Galactic Military Academy. Her students included humans, former council soldiers, and representatives from species that had never had militaries before. Fighting is sometimes necessary, she told her mixed class of cadets, but the goal should always be to protect the innocent, not to conquer the weak. The humans taught me that strength without wisdom is just destruction. Even Supreme Commander Yilseth eventually found his place in the new order. The ancient ethereal became the head of the Galactic Archives, working to preserve the history and culture of every species in the Alliance. His people's long memory and vast knowledge made them perfect guardians of galactic heritage. "We ruled through fear for 10,000 years, he admitted to Dr. G. Hai during one of their meetings. "We thought that was strength. But watching humans rule through respect and choice, this is true power." The changes were not without challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to freedom after centuries of being told what to do. Others tried to take advantage of the new system by claiming territory or resources that belonged to their neighbors. But the Terran Alliance's response to these problems was consistent and effective. Disputes were settled through negotiation and arbitration, not warfare. Species that violated the Alliance's principles were excluded from its benefits until they changed their behavior. Most importantly, no one was ever forced to join or remain in the Alliance against their will. 2 years after the fall of the Council, Ambassador Wu Jin stood once again in the chamber where it had all begun. But now the room was filled with representatives from over 500 species, all working together to solve the challenges facing their worlds. The chamber itself had been transformed. Instead of the old hierarchical seating arrangement where some species sat above others, the new design put everyone on the same level. Humans sat next to former council species, who sat next to beings that had never been allowed in the chamber before. The motion to establish the new Deep Space Exploration Initiative passes by unanimous consent, announced the chamber's moderator, a plant being whose species had been enslaved by the Council for 3,000 years. "Admiral Heiwan will lead the first mission to the Magellanic Clouds next month." Wu Jin smiled as he watched the proceedings. The galaxy had learned something important over the past 2 years. Peace was not about having the strongest weapons or the most fearsome reputation. True peace came from giving everyone a voice, treating all species with respect, and solving problems together instead of trying to dominate each other. As the session ended and beings from hundreds of worlds began to file out of the chamber, Wu Jin received a message on his communication device. It was from Earth, from President So Young. "Wu Jin," the message read, "I've just received reports from our exploration teams. They've made contact with 3 new civilizations in the Outer Rim.